All right. Welcome to another episode of Huddle and Whistle. This is episode number 3. Thank you again for tuning in with myself and attorney Terry Collins and Jimmy Mack. So today we're going to be talking about the politics of sports and what exactly does that mean? We're going to start off with you, Terry. What exactly is sports politics?
I don't really know. I think it's more along the business side of sports, like the things that really impact marketing, roster spots, playing time, things that really impact why decisions are made behind the scenes. And so that would be my definition of sports politics. It's like that, those things that people really don't, the average fan wouldn't be aware about or may not give much credence to, but those are real factors in terms of the product that you see that's on the floor.
And Jimmy, from somebody that's played at the highest level, what does that mean to you when you hear somebody talking about sports politics?
Um, just to co-sign with what Terry said, it has a lot to do with the behind the scenes. What if you're at the pro level, what the general manager and the coaches might be thinking how much they paying the player. So if I'm giving player A $4 million and player B is better than him and he's only making the league minimum, I got to play player A because that's an investment that we got to make. We can't have the $4 million man sitting on the bench and have the league minimum guy playing. So that goes into the context with it. Also, what coaches may perceive you, what's their perception of you, and what's the reality of it. Or sometimes it's an image. Arizona State softball some years ago, they had a team full of blonde hair, blue eyed girls on their team. That's all that the coach wanted. He wanted that to be the image. So there could have been a girl that could have been black, a brunette, Asian, Latina. He wouldn't have recruited her because he wanted that imagery of the school, of the girls in the school of his program, to be blonde hair, blue eyes. And if he did recruit a girl that had that was a brunette, that was white, he would pretty much make her kind of bleach her hair or dye her hair blonde. So he wanted that image and persona. So it inquires of what people want sometimes what they want their program to look like, their franchise to look like, or their organization to look like, and the type of people that they want to be a part of it. So that's a lot that has to do with sports politics.
You know, too, I think that probably the most visible example recently is Bronny James, right? And people go, LeBron got his son a roster spot. He shouldn't be playing. This is like politics at its finest. But in my opinion, Bronny James should be able to go home and drink straight out the orange juice. No glass, just go straight out the carton. He is the greatest 55th pick in the history of the NBA, right? The Lakers only guaranteed Bronny James $5.4 million, right? As a 55th pick.
Only
That's a lot.
5.4 in this context. So he sold over 550,000 jerseys.
Yeah.
The G League is now on Tubi, right?
Mm-hmm.
All because of Bronny James. So like 4 different sources have said Bronny James has generated over $50 million for the Los Angeles Lakers in 1 year, right? He has paid his dad's salary. Yeah. Bronny should be able to go drink straight out the orange juice. It's like, what 55th pick has generated 50 million? What son has generated 50 million?
Unheard.
Like, so you can say whatever you want, but the politics behind it and the money behind it, the boy might be the greatest I've ever seen at the 55th pick.
Hey, look, he can drink out that orange juice as long as Savannah say he can drink out the orange juice. I don't care how much money he making in the house. She gonna smack that boy if he does that. But but that's also like the Caitlin Clark experience that they have going on right now. She generates so much for the WNBA. Right. But also with sports politics, how are things being done? Is it being done the right way or the wrong way? And that's a perception that the fans and the media got to give it, because the media was outraged about Bronny James. They were totally outraged at this kid who almost died. Let's not put that into account. So he wasn't able to have the freshman year that he wanted to have at USC. But when he played in the G League, he's good at the G League. He's great at that level. Like he's a star at the G League level. And then with what comes with that James name, the quality that comes with that, he works hard. Even when he got in some NBA games, he's going to get cooked. But who doesn't get cooked in the NBA? We're talking about the best players in the world. There's no such thing as a lockdown defender in the NBA. Everybody gets buckets put on their head. So even when he got there, the way the media made it, the way the fans were making it, like as if like I was Bronny James, a 40-something-year-old dude who's out there running around the court getting killed. No, he actually has some game to him. So the politics of it is the Lakers want to make sure they lock LeBron in long term because his deal is coming up. Okay, we'll draft his son and we're going to get LeBron. But if Bronny develops, we got Bronny too. So like it was like a bonus. Like okay, we got the star player, but if we can get the little kid and develop him and he become a star, we got it. Because look at Brunson. Nobody thought Brunson was going to be that good,
Right.
and his dad is a coach in the NBA. It's not like his. We don't know if his dad had any impact on him getting drafted or being in the league, but he has proven with development that he's a star player now. So the politics of it is that sometimes people with name, or as they say, it's not what you know, is who you know. Who you know in certain situations, it comes to fruition for that person to be able to be developed and go on and do something well and probably become a big draw. So it works both ways. I mean, nobody was complaining when Kobe Carl, if you remember that, Terry, you remember that, Marlo, George Karl's son, he was in the NBA. Kobe Carl didn't really belong there, but he was on the team. He was on the NBA team. So it happens that way.
And a follow-up with your Brunson point, like the New York Knicks were mad apparently at Coach Tom Thibodeau, right? But Jalen Brunson doesn't sign with the New York Knicks if it's not for Tom Thibodeau's relationship with Jalen Brunson's dad.
Yes.
They go way back. And so all these things that are happening behind the scenes matter. So now you have, a premier all-star point guard leading your team based upon the coach's relationship with the dad. So those behind the scene things matter, but the average fan probably wouldn't know that.
I mean, what's crazy to me is how the majority of everything we're talking about, the issues with Caitlin Clark and Bronny James, it all kind of stems from people hating on them or disliking them, right? They probably have more fans that talk mess, or maybe at least an equal amount of fans that talk mess than fans that just totally 100% support them, which is the craziest thing to me. But it goes back to that old saying is, hey, publicity is publicity, right? Whether it's good or bad, it seems to work in sports.
Well, when it comes to the Caitlin Clark argument, what a lot of fans that have been longtime fans of WNBA, and Marlo, you know that probably me and you have been fans of WNBA since its inception because of Julie.
Exactly.
Julie Busso was our high school. She was Marlo's high school coach, my mentor. So we were big fans, especially when she was the Sparks head coach. So we love the WNBA because they gave a person that we love opportunity. So when it comes to that, what they were saying, and people have short memories, they were telling everybody how much better she was than every other woman that had ever played this game. And there has been a lot of great players that have played that game. And they were saying how she was going to be transcended. She was a better talent than everybody. If you keep telling people that, of course, people are going to be mad. So the politics that come with her is that they want to shoot this image out there. And Marlo, correct me if I'm wrong. When the WNBA first came out, it was considered the Black Woman League and the Lesbian League. And I hate to put it that way. That's what the league was. Because the Houston Comets was dominating, and they had Tina Thompson, Cheryl Swoops, and Cynthia Cooper. I mean, those women were phenomenal. They were dominating, and they were reluctantly put into the position of being the face of that league. And as you're going on, you have the Candace Parkers, Maya Moores, Lisa Leslie, NECA when she was at her height. So you have all these Black women, and some of them are lesbian that are having this great success. And I think with the social construct of what we have in the United States now with MAGA and stuff like that, they were looking for this Joan of Arc image for the sport.
Right.
And Caitlin Clark just so happened to be this Joan of Arc image at the sport. And they were going to push this heterosexual white woman in the lead of all of this and say how much better she was because she can take logo threes, or because she was just taking 40 shots in a game in college to get 30, so she was doing these type of things. And that's what they wanted to push, because they could have been pushed this league. They could have been made this league bigger and made it into something, but this is what they decided they want to do. And that's the politics of it, because right now I had to explain this to somebody the other day. When you create an image, and other people don't meet this image. Kennedy Carter, for instance, she don't meet this image.
Right.
You kill her earning power. You kill her ability to be in the sport because they don't want this black woman who is a dominant ball handling guard who can score efficiently and get her teammates, but she's kind of rough around the edges. We don't want that because she is the counter of what the image that we putting out there. So that becomes part of the sports politics of it too. I want my league to look a certain way. So in order for it to look a certain way, we're going to get rid of certain players. We'll get rid of certain coaches who have certain styles that they're teaching the girls or the women to play. And I'm not say girls, teaching these women to play that's going to be counterintuitive to what we want. Because when you listen to Caitlin Clark fans, they just want the other women to just let her score, let her be good, so we can keep buying paraphernalia and we can say this narrative of her is she's the greatest, and that plays into what's happening around the league is with people getting on the team and people getting cut. Because remember, Ari McDonald got cut by the Sparks. She got to Indiana because Caitlin Clark was hurt. Then they cut her again. Then they realized, like, dang, this girl, we're actually better with her running the point.
Yeah.
But I guarantee you, that's going to where Indiana's going to stub their toe with the politics of it. Do we let the fans have their way and let Caitlin do whatever, or do we win and let Ari McDonald run the show? So that's going to be interesting coming in, and that's part of the politics as well, because you want to make money, but you also want to win. Well, I hope that you want to win, because sometimes a lot of these owners, a lot of these people that run these franchises, the money part is all they care about. Getting championships don't matter. As long as I'm making a good return off of my my investment, I'm good.
Yeah. And it's so interesting, just to go back into how the politics and even like their personal persona or social media, how all of that kind of rolls in together. Because you can even look at somebody like Angel Reese's younger brother that was just drafted to the Lakers, right? I did not even realize she had a younger brother, right? Yeah. I still can't tell you his name. All I know is he's going to be Angel Reese's little brother. And so for me, it's like, is that more politics, right? She's got this great name. She's got this image, good, bad, or indifferent. She brings people to want to watch the sport. So if we bring her little brother in, then, there's something else to talk about for the Lakers. Oh, Angel Reese's brother. Like, does he even have a name at this point?
Julian.
Okay, there we go. Julian, I apologize, Julian Reese. But I'm just saying, like, again, politics, right? He could be the best player that we never saw. But he is being, I don't want to say targeted, but he's being promoted as Angel Reese's brother.
It's interesting because I used to think people were just initially hating because they didn't like a particular person, right? Yeah. And then I realized sometimes it's just a conflict between like a basketball purist versus somebody that is managing a team or building a culture, right? So, like, for example, one of my good friends, Ryan Dew, I'm going to say his name, right? He runs Team California. It's this AAU program. And he's gotten a number of players to the NBA. He truly believes that the best player should get the roster spot, right? So in his mind, Bronny James wasn't the best 55th player, right? And therefore, he robbed somebody that was better at this particular point in time of this spot, right? And then you contrast that to somebody who runs a high school program, like a perennial powerhouse program, right? So they might have a kid who played in the system their sophomore, freshman, junior year, and they get to their senior year, and that kid is not a starter, right? They will cut that kid and not let that kid play and take on a freshman or a sophomore, because they realize this program has to survive. So this senior who might have been with me for a couple of years, he's not going to give us quality minutes that supersede the longevity of this program. So sometimes they have to let certain players go for the culture and the team, and for them to just remain a perennial powerhouse. Like, these decisions have to be made. And so sometimes it's just a conflict between, you might be the best today, but you're not what's best for this program in the long run. And so what is a coach to do? Like, nobody's bigger than the team, they say.
Yeah, but on the opposite side of that, if I had a player that has been busting his tail and working hard for however long he had been there, and then all of a sudden I bring in his freshman And this freshman probably is better than this senior, and we can do that. But the leadership and the work that senior had put in, I ain't saying that just totally kick him off the team. Maybe he doesn't start, or maybe he starts the ceremonial senior start, and then you bring it in. But what you have is that you have more kids who will be willing to follow and take that role. Like, yeah, I'm probably not the star, but I know if I put in this hard work, and the coach is going to let it pay off for me. I'm going to get some playing time. I might get a bucket here or there, or just do the dirty work. You know, I'm the Robert Ory of the team. You need a big shot. You need a big rebound. I'll come and do that, because you always need those grunts in your program or on your team. The guy that's not really a star, but he makes star plays down the stretch. And sometimes I think when a person has invested their time and energy 4 years at a high school program, maybe 4 or 5 years at a college program, and that person comes in, I think the program gets rewarded more than what their production is, because of how they can be that glue guy in the locker room, how they can have that leadership. Because to me, the leader doesn't always have to be your best player. Your leader just has to be somebody that can rally the troops at any given moment, any given time. So, you know, I was at El Camino College in 2022, and we had a kid who had been there for 3 years, and this is community college. Usually, if you have been there for 3 years, you're probably not that good. But he was such a great locker room guy. And I remember our offensive coordinator was just like, hey, I know you have him as a starter because of what he brings to the table. He's been consistent. He knows all the plays. He teaches the other players the plays. But we're going to drop him down to like the 6 on the depth chart, because we just got this freshman in that's dynamic and we want to play him. And I'm just like, wow, you know, this kid has been a leader in the weight room. He's been a leader in meetings. He's done all of this. Now you're going to kick him down. You know that kid is going to leave. He's going to take off. So we're going to run a risk of losing this really good kid that everybody loves because he's not dynamic enough. And lo and behold, they met with the kid, put him off the team, and the team he didn't put him off the team. They gave him an option, be, you know, the backup to the backup, or, you know, you could transfer and go somewhere else and play. And he did. And I swear the atmosphere in the room and how everything went with that team, because what it was just like, this kid put in all his work, and now you're not going to reward him. Sometimes the players just want to know that a person that's putting in the work is going to get their just due, because they tell us off of your merit, based on your merit, you should be able to do this. And that kid had built up the cachet in the locker room and with a lot of the other coaches. And then for him to go, it really messed our team up to the point where a lot of people's like, I don't know when I'm going to get done. When do I fall out of favor? Or no, what do I do? So it made things a little rough in that moment.
Or he could have had his mother wear a sundress. Right?
Man, come on. But Jim, I'm gonna push back in this regard. I agree with what you're saying, and I totally understand that. But this is the dilemma. It used to be that kids could not just transfer out of the school. So if they were in a program, they remained, or they would be ineligible the next year. Now a kid can just freely leave and go across the street and play. So you can't lose your phenoms. You need the horses, right? And so even though this guy is a senior and he's a leader, he's going to get pushed to number 12, 13, 15 on a roster, because this 9th grader that might be coming in, or this college freshman, he's your greatest recruiting tool for the next year that's coming in. So you can't just continue to lose 5-star players and expect to win. Like, you know, it's just not possible. People, you won't be the destination where the hoopers want to go, or the football players want to go, because the stars that they know, they're not playing. They on the bench. So, you know, these kids leaving. Like, it's they gone. You don't play me, I'm gone.
Yeah.
So
here's another aspect to that, though. You know, maybe not so much at the high school level or club level, but how much does sponsorships and boosters play a role in that, you know, lineup, and that the politics of the lineup, right?
Yeah, I mean, that plays a big role, because especially with nowadays with the NIL, even though I think that's about to go to the wayside and things are going to be done a little bit differently. If we're investing, like I said, with the $4 million player and the league minimum player, where we're putting all this money into this kid to get them here, we need to see the production on the field. That money needs to pay off. I mean, because when I was going through college, it was a 5-year scholarship. And then somewhere along the line, I want to say in the 2000s, like they have to resign these scholarships year after year. Like, oh wait, no, you ain't good enough, so we're not going to, because it was an automatic resign. I signed here for 5 years. There's nothing you can do. If I never play and I get, my degree and then go get a master's degree on your dime, that's just how it worked out. So it works that way with, nowadays, because there's so much money being given to the players, they want to see the payoff. And sometimes these kids are, as Terry said, they can go across the street tomorrow. Money talks now in this industry. So if I'm already giving Terry $4 million to be here for 4 years, then Nebraska comes around and go, we're going to double that. We'll give you 8. Come on, Terry, let's go. Yeah. Now, when Terry gets there, that $8 million man, they going to want that return on that. And those boosters that put in that money into that collective, or the people, whoever's giving this NIL deal, the guy that is doing John's rib tips or John's rib shack, he want that kid on the field. He want Terry on the field. So that's and they're going to call the coaches. And this is the one thing that's going to be a problem moving forward with a lot of these college coaches. Any big time booster that's putting in money going to want to see the kid that he's giving that money to on the field, because that's a brag for them. So that's going to seep into your locker room and stuff like that. But also when it comes to the politics, it's also an attitude fit. If you are a kid that the coaches lose faith into, not because you can't play, but because they feel that they're threatened by you, or they feel that they can't control you, that can also take away your playing time. That can also do that. In my 4 years at UCLA, my freshman year, I came in, I was playing behind 2 All-Americans. So that wasn't a problem. But once J.J. Stokes had left and I was next man up, it became a problem. They tried to replace me 3 different times. All 3 times it didn't work because, like Terry said, the best man deserved a spot. So I kept having to prove that I was the best man, because why? I didn't fit the image or the attitude that they wanted. They wanted the kid from South LA, but they didn't want what came with the kid from South LA. Like, you can't just talk to me crazy, or you can't just tell me something. I'll be like, hey, nah, that ain't gonna work, bruh. Now that becomes a problem when you telling them, hey man, that play ain't gonna work based on our personnel. Like, you're actually trying to talk to them and in a strategic point, and they like, nah, this is our show, this is how we run it. So sometimes that becomes a conflict in the politics of what's being played as well. Not because you're good, it's because, do I really want you to be the person that represents my program? Do I want you to be that person? You'll see that a lot in the NFL. And I know you've talked to Dennis about this quite a bit, Marlo. Sometimes you can have a person that's a dog and they be like, nah, but we'll keep you, we'll make you like the second receiver, but we're not going to make you number 1. Or, you can be the third down back, but you're not going to be. And that dude is actually the better of the 2. And they'll just do you dirty like that because they don't want your imagery, or they feel that your attitude ain't what we want to represent our team. So that becomes a part of that as well, besides the money aspect in it.
So let me ask this, and you guys may or may not know this, but this is definitely going to come up. If we don't figure it out now, it'll definitely be in a future episode. But what is the big difference between these colleges and universities that have started their own NIL collectives, and then you have now this new thing where they're able to pay, players directly? Is that going to kind of conflict at some point?
It should, because the schools, because every university is not equal. Like,
right,
Fresno State can come up with a collective. That collective can have 15 million in it. So they can only afford $15 million worth of talent. So how do you spend that talent? Do you bring in a 5-star freshman and give him 3.5? So now you got, 11.5 to play around with, so how does that work? But then you got Ohio State, who can have a collective, or they can just play people straight up millions and millions and millions. You can have, several players making $5 million because of what they're doing. So that's going to conflict because you've made it, it's not fair. It's not an even playground, because you'll always have the same teams at the top. And the part about college sports that used to be great before we paid players, Terry could be a 2-star only because he's from a small town in Idaho and nobody knew. But Terry ends up at Boise State. Now he's a killer out there, So now that people see Terry out there balling, he's really a 5-star type talent. Here comes Ohio State with that bag. So they're going to take him out of Boise, The one thing that was getting people to pay attention to Boise, now he's in Ohio now because why? His parents, are going to want that financial thing. That they want the payback, the payment of all the training and all the time they have to miss work to come to the games and buying cleats and doing things like that. So that's going to be a big thing. So the collectives are going to be great if you can get a gang of money in the collectives. But if you got people just with the collectives and other people that can just pay straight out, you're going to just stack talent all the time.
So this, collective NIL is really a fluid issue. So they just passed some rules where the NCAA is now basically setting up a tier system where, depending on the conference that you're in, that will determine the amount of money each school in that conference has to distribute towards the players. So like if you're in the SEC, your budget may be 25 million. If you're in a different conference, the ACC, that budget might be 22 million. And so it's up to the schools to figure out how they're going to disperse this money and manage this money. Then they took it a step further because the reality of it is that you can't prevent boosters and NILs from financing players. So you have an in-house metric where people are given compensation for play, but then you also have an outside contract opportunity for players. Now, what the NCAA is trying to do is say all of these outside contracts now have to be approved by the NCAA. And they're saying that basically out of all the contracts that are in play now, 90% of them will not be approved in the future. They have to honor all of the contracts that are in play now. So this won't become effective until like 2026. 2026 season. But starting then, if you're, Johnny's Barbecue and you want to sponsor a player or give them an NIL deal or something like that, that contract has to be sent to the NCAA. So I just think it's just a matter of time of people just figuring out how to work the system. So the short answer to your question, Marlo, is, people are smart. They'll figure out how to get their players on the field. They'll figure out how to pay them. It's just no way around it.
So the human element to that is the NCAA can be bribed itself. You know what I'm saying? If I'm Jackson's bail bonds, there's no way I should really be sponsoring anybody just because of the name of my business. I shouldn't be doing all of this stuff. But they'll find a way to, because that's the problem. That's why we're here where we're at now. The NCAA was making money hand over fist over these players. You have players that are walking away from college with CTE. They get these devastating injuries that they can barely walk, things like that. And they were getting no compensation. When the NCAA, all they had to do was just break bread early and as often as they could, because some of these kids they're never going to hit the professionals in their sport, but they don't have nothing to show for but a degree, and they still got to hit the workforce, and that degree got to work. Because if I got a degree from Idaho Tech, my degree don't hold no weight if I'm going up against somebody from USC for a job. So now I just spent my 4 or 5 years with this degree that sometimes it don't matter where I got it from. Everybody know in the SEC, those degrees aren't great degrees to get, but because they're paying people under the table, and now with the NIL, they're getting people. Now I don't even need my degree now. I'm walking away out of college with 4.5 million. So I don't really need the degree now. I've just made my life better. And that was the point of going to college, making my life better. Going to have an opportunity to make my life better. And sometimes it's going to the pros, sometimes it's getting a degree that means something. Unlike how at North Carolina, they were giving out those bogus degrees.
Jim, I want to ask you a question. Because you play, you're Bruin. I'm going to phrase this way, allegedly. Sometimes players are recruited and they get compensation to come to a team, not necessarily to play for that team, but the coach does not want you to go play for the opponent. And so sometimes it's like, hey, this kid might be the third cornerback or third starting player on our depth chart, right? But we do not want him going to USC. We don't want him going to Cal. So we need to make sure that he stays at UCLA and is on our roster because number one or two, they might get hurt. There might be injuries. There might be different things that happen that come up, right? But the reality of it is we can't afford to let this player go compete against us. Now, they won't just come out right and say that. Did you ever experience anything where you just felt like, why are you having me here? Like, what was the real reason for you to have me come play here? Like, if you really didn't want to play me, was it to keep me away from going to play for somebody else? Did you ever experience anything like that? Or have you ever heard of any stories of where players kind of come up with that summation?
Yeah, you kind of know that when you get there, you see players on your team, and you're like, he don't even fit here. Like, why is he here? One of my good teammates, Glenn Tompkins, who came out the same year I did in 1994. He was the California State Player of the Year in football. Was a quarterback at Rialto Eisenhower. They were the #2 high school team in the nation. They didn't want him to go to Oklahoma. Not that we have to even play Oklahoma, or they didn't want him to go to Oregon State, where they had option quarterbacks and a guy who can actually throw the ball. Like, we had a scrimmage one time, we let him play quarterback, even though he's all of 5'10". Dude had an arm. You can see that he had that moxie to be a quarterback. And it's kind of like, we don't want him. Eventually, right away they put him on the defensive side of the ball. It's like, we don't even want him to compete for the starting quarterback job. And I remember having a conversation with him, and I was like, dude, like, why are you settling to be a DB when you are like you was a man in high school? He was just like, people keep telling me I can't turn down a UCLA degree. If the pros don't work for me, this UCLA degree is going to work well for me. He said some of the other places like Oklahoma and Oregon State and places that wanted me to be a if those degrees, if things don't work out, he's like, look at me, I'm not going to go to the NFL as a quarterback. But also, those degrees don't hold weight like a UCLA degree. And I remember when I was going through it my junior year at UCLA, he was just like, man, I think they kind of doing you the same way. I think he's like, everybody know you wanted to go to USC. Everybody know that you wanted to be a Trojan, and you had that opportunity. But UCLA put the all-out stops to get you here because they didn't want you on that side of town. And right. I was like, you know what? I told him, I said, I was kind of thinking that, but it's like they're playing me a lot when they need me. It's not they always were playing me. They played me when the going got tough. Like, okay, grab him and put him in there and let's make some things happen. So, you get that feel of it because you like, I knew I didn't fit UCLA's system. I had to learn the system because they ran a West Coast offense. I'm a deep threat. You don't run a lot of deep routes in the West Coast offense. But by the time we got to my senior year, they kind of flipped that around because it's like, we got to get a playmaker out here at all times. Let's put him more in the offense and throw the ball a little bit deeper all the time to get him going. So it gets that way because they don't want to compete. They'll waste your talent so you don't have to compete. And I hate that colleges do that because you're ruining somebody's life. You're ruining somebody's life where you could have just let that kid go to San Jose State or San Diego State or Fresno State, but I don't want to play against him or I don't ever want to see him, somewhere else. So we're just going to hoard this talent and sit them here on the shelf knowing they don't fit. And you would think that coaches want everybody in their program to fit their program, but that's a big strategy and some politics in that as well. Is I don't want to compete against him, so we'll recruit him knowing that we don't need him.
Yeah, that's like playing chess and not checkers.
Yes.
Really? So how does sports politics interfere with like player development and team chemistry and like just the overall mental health and confidence of a player? I know you just kind of touched on it, but that would seem to kind of create maybe sometimes more issues than what it's worth by playing, that type of a strategy.
It depends on the individual. I know when my playing days were over, like after getting cut from the 49ers, my last time getting cut out the NFL, it played a lot in rebuilding who I was as a person. Not saying that football defined me, but football was my strategy, my plan on helping my family. It wasn't just something that I wanted to do. I wanted to make sure that my dad never had to work again, or that my great aunt who sacrificed a lot for the family can just go sit on her butt. You know what I'm saying? And never have to do anything for the family again because somebody is going to take care of her as well. So it can be a bad thing, especially in a locker room, because if you have a player that people love and people seeing them getting done dirty, it puts everybody on notice. Like, hey, no matter how much we think about him, these coaches think another way. So what do they think about me? It gets people thinking. It gets people going. It can make the team sour. Like, you can get people, they'll start building factions. The ones that are going with the program with the coaches, oh, just do what the coach say, or you guys y'all always steering up trouble. And you can fracture your locker room like that, because you're going to have people going to always be upset with what's going on behind the scenes with coaches, because coaches will have a conversation with Terry and be like, Terry, man, you the greatest player that we got. We going to do this, do that. And then go tell another player that's competing with Terry, like, man, Terry ain't all that, man. We going to get you the ball. We going to do this and that. So they're giving these mixed messages. And now Terry and this player that he's competing with have these animosities towards each other, because the coach is telling Terry one thing about how great he is and telling this other player, like, oh, Terry ain't this and that. So that person is building up this resistance. Like, I don't even want to be Terry friend because, I'm competing against him, and the coaches say he's this, and that. So I should stay away from him. So y'all will never have that conversation like, hey, what did the coach tell you? Because that can become a problem, because if players start talking about, hey, man, what coach tell you? Oh, he told me this. Oh, well, he told me this. Then it becomes a problem. So what they like to do, they like to, they don't want a strong unified front with their team. Sometimes they want to have people break off in segments because they can control you a little bit better. So it can become a big problem in your locker room if you don't have strong locker room figures. You got to have strong, even if they're not the team captain, just a strong figure in the locker room that say, hey, this is how we move as a team or as a unit. It's not going to be all of this. So it can really be bad when the politics are being played out in real time, and you got players competing for spots, competing for, the opportunity. It can get really, really nasty, especially if the coaches are just allowing that culture to fester.
Yeah.
So I think we have two live examples that are playing out right now, and this is something that we should watch. The first example is the UCLA women's Bruins basketball team. So they had star freshmen, right? These women were stars, right, that didn't get to play, so they left.
Mm-hmm.
So the coach says, and is quoted as saying, sometimes you can just have too much talent.
Yeah.
You can only work with a certain group. So that's one philosophy of looking at it. And then you also have Shedeur Sanders. He wasn't a fifth round, 144th overall pick, right? And so now you have the league saying, we don't want Deion Sanders' sports agency getting a stranglehold on the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. So all the Colorado players that should have got drafted much higher end up getting drafted much lower. So Shedeur now goes in there. He's the fourth string quarterback, but he's clearly the best quarterback. Mm-hmm. So the players are not going to tolerate him sitting on the bench if he's outperformed them. So what are they doing? They're not always letting him have first team reps. They're not always letting him have second team reps. But when he gets in there, he's shining. Now, apparently, he's number 2 on the depth chart, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But that NFL locker room is going to go off if they don't play the best player at quarterback. So you can't tank it in the NFL, especially at the beginning of the season, because everybody has hope, right? So we'll see how these two situations play off. So let's keep an eye on these Bruin women basketball players and these Cleveland Browns. Let's keep an eye on them.
Now, the only thing about the NFL locker room is, because that NFL locker room is so cutthroat, because it's only 54 spots, which I think is stupid. I think it's the pros. You shouldn't have 54 players, at least 70, at least 75, because people get hurt. And the last thing you want to do is bring somebody off the couch to learn your complicated system in a week and go out there and try to go against some of the best players in the world. So I always thought that was kind of dumb. But when I was in Chicago, that locker room was so cutthroat. Like, a person, Curtis Conway was my teammate in camp. Now, Curtis is secure with his position. So you ask Curtis anything, Curtis would be like, oh, yeah, man, you should do this. Go do that, do that. Bobby Ingram, on the other hand, would be like, man, you better learn that on your own, bro. Like, I don't care if you got success or not. So a lot of times in those locker rooms, when it comes to that, you can be an extravagantly amazing player. I heard this about Joe Horn. When Joe Horn was with the Kansas City Chiefs, he was clearly their best receiver. But no, we're not playing him. No. And they said it kind of fractured the locker room, because this dude is on the scout team killing everybody. but then he don't ever get an opportunity to play. He don't come to fruition as a good player until he gets to New Orleans, but he had already been in the league for 3 years. So, you get to these things, and that fractures your locker room because everybody's like, are they trying to win? And that becomes a big thing in the pros because they all want to win. They want to be successful. But when I see one of our best players not even getting in the game, not even getting that opportunity, it makes the locker room sick because you're just like, man, we can use this dude because the more you win, the more money you make as a team. You get a different check for those playoffs, that first round, that second round, that conference championship, that Super Bowl. That's more money in my pocket to blow on whatever I want to blow it on. So you're killing that vibe in that locker room because those dudes are like, we can actually win. And you know how winning gonna get other people commercials, gonna get certain people more deals and more sponsorships and all that stuff. So you're playing with my money because you don't want to play this person. So what's the first thing they're gonna do? How can I get out of here? I remember being in the locker room after a preseason game. We lost to the Bills, and there were dudes on the phone with their agent. Man, you got to get me up out of here. We not trying to win around here. They messing with my paper. And at that moment, I'm not thinking, I'm like, you on contract. But these guys they know winning brings celebrity, brings opportunity outside of the sport. So that's why you get a lot of guys who be like, "Oh, it's about me. I'm a make myself into a brand and make myself big so I can set myself up for after this." And a lot of times people don't want one person to be bigger than the brand, like you said with Dion's agency. But you don't want Shador to be that guy. You don't want that because then that promotes Shador, that promotes Prime's agency, and it's going to get more players to come in and go, I want to be under that umbrella because we can run this thing. So,
and that comes into, my next question, comment, and statement. And it's like, does having connections or name recognition really play a significant role in politics? And I think we all can agree that it absolutely does. However, it's like you have the positive aspect and then you have the negative aspect because, again, Shador Sanders could probably take that team a lot farther if they just allowed him to shine, right? More sponsorships, more this, more that. And then it's not just for him, but it's for the other players too. If he's throwing those dimes and they're, catching them, now you've got the receivers that are getting, that shine. And I just don't understand that aspect of the politics where a coach or general managers or the management team doesn't look at that and remove their own personal ego and say, you know what? Let's get to the bag. Let's talk about this money that they are going to bring to our program.
No, I agree with you. I think the beginning of the season, everybody feels like they have a chance at winning. And then when you get to December, you know where you fall. And then decisions get made. And, it is what it is. That's just the real life, politics of sports.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, name recognition is a lot when it comes to the politics and things like that. And what you want is that you're building legacy because that legacy is going to mean something for your kids eventually. I was just watching this young lady talk on TikTok about going to Sierra Canyon and all the people that she ran into, Candace Parker, Caitlyn Jenner. These are people who have set their kids up and put them in a situation where it's nothing but connections. It's nothing but name recognition. Like,
well let me check you real quick. Candace Parker is a Campbell Hall mom. Thank you very much. Okay.
She said that Candace Parker was bringing her kid in to see if they wanted to go to Sierra Canyon, and walked into the classroom, and she was like, because she played basketball, she was like, she lost her mind. Like, Candace Parker is in my classroom. Candace Parker wasn't walking into Washington Prep. We wasn't getting that thing. So when you put those names in certain places, it's going to attract more people to hand out more opportunities. But that name legacy, like the Manning name, Arch Manning barely has played in college, but we all know Arch Manning will be somewhere in the first 2 rounds coming out this next draft. He's going to start at Texas. Texas surrounded him with a ton of talent. He's going to play well because he's a good player, but that Manning name means so much in the football circle, so that's what you want. You want that legacy because that helps with the politics of it all. You see, like, Ewers barely got drafted, and Ewers had started over him. But now you're going to see Arch be like, oh, he's the greatest quarterback in Texas history. We'll forget about Vince Young. We'll forget about Colt McCoy. We'll forget about Major Applewhite. We'll forget about all those players. But they'll be blowing smoke up Arch Manning. But if he throws 4 touchdowns in a game, if he rushes for a touchdown, look how mobile he is. So that name recognition in these type of situations are big. And we all, I hope we all wanted to build a name for ourselves so our kids can have the easy street one day, or people that's associated with us have the easy street one day, because our name meant something and brought it to the table.
But here's another aspect of that, right? Let's compare a LeBron James with a Deion Sanders. Why is it that Deion's name, as great as it is, seemed to have a negative effect on his son, whereas LeBron James, as great as his image or name recognition is, had a positive effect? Is that because of the individuals themselves, or is it the difference in politics for various teams?
I think it's LeBron James became the first player to have a agency that represented players while he was still playing. And LeBron's sports agency has a direct impact on the amount of money players are getting paid and the direction or the location that players end up. Deion Sanders was about to become LeBron James on steroids, because you see the amount of money that Deion generated for the state and the city of Colorado, right? Now he's transforming, and he's going to become the premier agent for all of the athletes coming out of a lot of the athletes coming out of college football. So they don't want to allow that door to be open for Deion. And I think a lot of times coaches get blamed for the decisions that are made by owners, because I don't know a coach that don't want to win. I don't know a coach that's not competitive, that hasn't put in 1,000 hours to try to put the best game plan together, right? But then the owner comes in and they make a decision and they derail the coach. Antonio Pierce said, mortgage everything. We want Jaden Daniels at quarterback, right? Management wouldn't let him do it. The Raiders didn't have a quarterback. We saying we, because I'm a diehard Raider. We didn't have a quarterback, and it tanked the season, and Antonio Pierce gets fired. He probably has his job, right? If he still has a quality quarterback. Yep. Devontae Adams is still there with the Raiders, right? So then you take another extreme where you look at the Dallas Mavericks, right? Their owner allegedly was promised that the city of Dallas would pass legislation for them to allow gaming rights and casino for the city of Dallas, because the owners of the Dallas Mavericks are also the owners of the Sands Casino in Vegas, right? The legislation didn't pass. They didn't get their casinos. So the owner could have very well been like, no casino, we not paying Luka $345 million, right? You didn't give me my casino as promised. I'm not going to generate the income that I was going to need to be able to play Luka, right? So now Nico Harrison and the coach get blamed for trading Luka, but it was the owner, right? A business person, like, I'm not paying him $345 million and I don't have my casino rights, right? But then somehow they end up with the number 1 pick. So I don't know if it's a quid pro quo or what happened behind that, but the relationship between the league and the owner is sometimes totally out of the hands of the coach, and it's simply above their pay grade.
Another aspect that I'll touch on with that, because everything that Terry said is absolutely true. There's a lot of back alley deals being made for some of these things. When it comes to LeBron and Deion, LeBron's still making the NBA money. Deion wasn't making no money for the NFL. So that's why it could work a little bit more in a positive, because Bronny has generated what you said, $55 million.
Yeah.
In jersey sales alone. He's not getting that money that goes to the NBA, that goes to the Lakers franchise. So that money is being spread around, not to mention the LeBron jerseys and the LeBron paraphernalia and LeBron being on the Sunday night game and millions of viewers watching and stuff like that. Where Dion isn't with the NFL. He doesn't bring the NFL any money, but he's pulling his money out of the NFL by getting these players drafted and paid and stuff like that. They're going to want that person to generate revenue as well. And also a person like Dion. LeBron, you can't really control him, but you have some controls over him. You will never be able to fully control a Deion Sanders. Is no way. Like, even if you made him a coach, I dare the owner, I dare the GM to come in and be like, hey, Deion gonna look at them like, man, if you don't get up out of here with that, no, this is what we doing, because Deion wants to win. Deion is a ultimate competitor, and you're not going to control the person that he is. So by even letting Deion get his foot in the door in the NFL as an agent, or have his agency going, or even because a lot of people are like, if we get Shador, then eventually Deion will become the coach. They did not want that at all. They don't want that, because they know Deion ain't gonna play your games. He gonna play his game. He gonna crash the boat on his own terms. He ain't gonna let nobody else pilot the ship. He gonna pilot the ship, and if it crashes, it crashes. So that's another thing that's the difference between that. Yes, LeBron comes across as this independent entity, but LeBron has done so much business with the NBA that is bringing the NBA money, where Deion isn't bringing the NFL any type of money. So yeah, we can do his son dirty and do the players that's under him dirty, as long as they don't, which could backfire, because if all those players come out and they become stars in the NFL, they're going to lose that battle. But for right now, they still have that semblance of control.
Got it.
And I think you're definitely spot on with that, Jim. And just to highlight that even more, I believe the statistic was that when the Lakers were eliminated from the playoffs, right? And you could attribute it to Luka or LeBron or whatever, right? But when the Lakers were eliminated from the playoffs, they said NBA viewership went down. It was either 29% or 39%. Like, it was just an immediate fall off. So LeBron is a different animal when it comes to generating money for the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there a way to eliminate politics in sports?
No. No. I mean, it's the human element, like, I was just telling my wife about Bob Myers. Bob Myers was the guy who ran Golden State through their glory days of winning all these championships. When Bob Myers was in college at UCLA, he was a scrub. He was a guy on the bench. We cheered when he got in the game, like, hey, Bob's in. Hey! He was that crowd favorite guy. Nobody thought Bob would get to this point. So I think that's what made Bob such a good GM. He was just like, I know how it feels to be the low man on the totem pole, and I know how to build my name and my brand as a person. So I'm going to let my coaches coach. I'm going to let my players play. I don't care if Steph Curry is shooting full court shots. If they're going in, I'm not going to interfere with that. I'm not going to say that, because it's bringing it. I mean, the Golden State Warriors franchise net worth, just it grew astronomically. They were just a team in California to now they were this whole dynasty with an iconic run with iconic players in the team. So that was him playing politics. Like, I can just step back and let my guys go, and that's going to build up my brand. Where you got somebody else that'd be like, you know what? If we ain't 10 games above 500 by the time we get to 40 games, we going to wholesale. We're going to get rid of everybody, and we're going to bring new dudes in. So the politics is always in the ego of the people that's running the show. If my ego is big and I want to be seen as the person who's the architect of everything, yeah, I'm going to just do whatever I want, and this is how we're going to be. When you got somebody that's just like, sit back and let's let the dominoes fall how they fall. You know what I'm saying? Because just imagine if Golden State never gets KD. If he doesn't go out and get KD, we don't want KD. They probably only get one championship, So he was just like, man, let's just do this. And he stepped back. You very seldom knew Bob Myers was even in the building. So it's going to depend on the ego of the people who are running these programs that's going to keep the politics in it. Do you let your players play and let your coaches coach? Or you got to go, you know what? This person's getting too big for my liking. Let's ship them out. Or a casino deal go wrong. So these things could happen.
Right.
Wow. Okay. Right. So final thoughts from your perspectives as a player, as a parent, as a coach, what, if anything, can be done to maybe push back against the politics of sports or make it work in your best interest?
I think you just have to play for the love of the game. Like at the end of the day, there's highs and lows with life. There's animosity between teammates, coaches, all these different things happen. You can't always predict your own financial outcome. All you can do is put yourself in the best position to continue to enjoy the game, to continue to enjoy life. And, you have to, at some point, remember you did this because you loved it, right? And you just can't control everything, but representation does matter. Who you get to represent you, who negotiates your deal, who goes in and have the conversation with the coach, who has a relationship with the ownership, those things. So you have to be very intentional on what you do to even position yourself to get in a room, right? Because getting hired is who you know, as well as, and it's directly relates to sports too, and so that will never change. So what coach stands on the table for you, right, and says, this is my guy, he should be playing, you need to learn how to spot that person, develop that relationship with that person, and then continue to just ball out. Because if you don't know who that decision maker in the room is, whether it be sports or life, you just getting lucky.
Yeah. I mean, personally, and I tell this to Marley all the time, coaches are human. They're not going to always like you. They're not going to always, think you're funny or whatnot, because she tends to be a jokester a lot. And it's a fine line between somebody finding it funny or feeling like, you're kind of messing with them. And I'm like, dude, stop messing with your coach. Like, he's cool, but chill. It's okay. Like, just play, stop with all the extra stuff. But that's just her personality. In her mind, she's just having fun. She loves the game. Now the flip side of that is there's a lot of her teammates that are not coming back because they were not happy or satisfied, or they didn't get out of it what they wanted. And while politics may have played a role, sometimes it's hard for parents and even players to say, what, I'm not the best, that person was better than me. So there's always that fine line, and I just try to be as realistic as possible, that you just got to work hard. You work hard and you find your spot. Maybe that spot for you is not here, right? Doesn't make you a bad player, but you have to be able to fit. And I think a lot of times that in itself is politics. Do you fit in that environment? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. And when you don't fit, you don't allow someone else to change your mentality and say, I'm not playing anymore. You just go where you fit. So that's my take on it. Sometimes you have to just play your best game and I think Terry just said, let the chips fall where they may. The best players don't always get the best shot, but that's sports and that's sports politics. So I think we've wrapped this show up. Another episode of Huddle and Whistle.
All right.